Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you may happen to be right around the globe. You've actually landed on Planet Henry and Friends Live, broadcasting to you right around the world. And then, of course, available on podcast on demand on our Henry and Friends Live YouTube channel, and also now on iTunes and Google Podcasts, Henry and Friends Live. Well, let me tell you, we are so excited to have you on board. We always love our audience. And if you are a returning visitor to our podcast, we absolutely welcome you. And if this is your first time on Henry and Friends Live podcast, we are thrilled. As always, we recommend that you pull up a sofa, you grab yourself a cup of tea or coffee, and if it's age and time appropriate, a gorgeous cappuccino martini, if that's your thing. Sit back and relax, because I have to tell you, we are going on really some kind of amazing journey here today with you all. It's really interesting to prepare our topics, and we've been doing so all week long, looking at actually what's going to be happening in 2022. And why did we start talking about that now? Well, I think it's a good time to project into the future, obviously. But I think even more importantly, can you believe it? By the end of this month, we're going to be looking fair and square at 8 weeks to go before the end of 2021. And our show likes to be trending in its own right. So I thought, why don't we grab the topic before everybody forecasts, and we can make our own predictions and look back at it over the last 8 weeks when we do it and actually determine how accurate we actually were. In a few minutes, we are going to introduce a fun-filled panel live from Miami, from Melbourne, and from Sydney. And you know what we do now? Buckle up, enjoy this ride, because here we come, Henry and Friends Live, and in 15 seconds back, we're going to be doing an intro. Enjoy. Wherever you are on this globe, welcome across the world. This is Henry and Friends Live. I'm your host, Henry Samuel Weinreich. And don't forget, all our shows are available, the whole entire catalogue, on Henry and Friends Live YouTube. So you can catch up on all the shows that you did not necessarily see or hear before today. And let me tell you some Bobby Dazzlers. However, this morning or afternoon or evening, wherever you may be, we have gathered together some extraordinary women in different industries, in communications, in fashion, in housing advocacy, to pose quite a few questions about what's trending and what we can see in the future in 2022. So what better way to do that than actually do our little 23-second introduction to each and every one: Hannah Littman in Miami, Lucy Laurita in Melbourne, and Ballina Gee in Sydney, Australia, as we just do our little intro, and we'll be back in 23 seconds. You're watching Henry and Friends Live right around the globe. We're going to introduce right now, direct from Miami, Florida, the fabulous Hannah Littman. How are you, Hannah?
Hello, I'm well, thank you. How are you?
Excellent. How are you enjoying your weekend so far?
It's been fantastic.
So you're doing what, 90 degrees Fahrenheit, which is 30 degrees Celsius?
Yes.
Are you ready for the hot topics today?
I am.
I communication
in Miami.
Well, we know you're going to, that's right. We know that you're going to be adding your communications strategy hat on, marketing, public relations. You work with some of the biggest in the industry. Let me bring on now Lucy Laurita. Good morning, Lucy.
Good morning, Henry and Hannah. How are you both?
How are you doing, Hannah? You're doing well. Lucy, how are you doing?
Great. Excited to be on, sharing some
fantastic.
insights, some of my opinions, I guess.
Well, we've had a lot of reading to do, all of us, so I don't want to delay too much, but I am going to bring in Ms. Ballina Gee in Sydney, my hometown. Ballina, good morning. How are you?
Good morning, Henry, Hannah, Lucy, and the audience, everybody watching on Henry and Friends Live. Glad to be here.
Well, I want to actually do a little bit of a teaser because through the week, and especially now as we were in our green room preparing for this show, we're going to do the traditional half an hour. So we're going to be doing our 15 minutes, a break, and then 15 minutes, and we're going to be bringing up some amazing topics. And I'll just tell you exactly what we're going to be talking about right now. We're going to be talking about ABBA, the avatars, and this new generation of concerts where actually digital images take over from human beings. We're going to talk about fashion coming up. Is gender binary over? We've seen so many people walking down the runway, men in women's clothing, women in men's clothing. Is there such a thing as men's or women's clothing? That's one of our questions. And the changing face of Facebook. The new name of the company is called Meta. And I don't know if you've opened up your Facebook and seen that changing name because it's been flashing everywhere. So without any further ado, I would like to actually start probably with Ballina. If you would like to start off the conversation, Ballina, the avatars, right? So we've talked about how Avatar's just done the new album called Voyage. And basically what they're doing is next year, May 2022 in London, they're actually going to be doing this whole staged performance. 160 cameras have created a digital concert. Are we going just a little bit too computer? What's your thoughts?
My thoughts are congratulations, because it's all about money, money, money. That's what it's about. And it's to make it so relevant. I mean, this is where the age and the transition of concerts have come. In the world of lockdown, we weren't able to perform. And as a performer myself, my other hat, there is always looking for other mechanisms. The concern I have is that there's a vibe when you're live and you get to see the performer in real life. There's a huge live vibe about it that's just buzzing. So I don't know whether they'll get the same buzz.
What do you think, Lucy?
I'm quite excited about it. I mean, I'm an ABBA fan, grew up with them. This is taking us back to 1979. It's, I think, come at the right time and it's also showing that reconnection after 40 years of them not wanting to be back together, and that, never say never, and also the longevity of it all. Is this where we're heading? Are we going to have our own personal avatars one day? What do you think?
Hannah, what are your thoughts?
We've lost Henry, I think.
Henry.
Hannah, what do you think?
Hannah, what do you think?
I see what you're saying, Lucy. My thing is, look, it may be generational. I was born when ABBA was no longer performing live, and I know that a lot of people have been wanting to see them again. And we've had Mamma Mia, and their music is ageless and timeless and joyful. I tend to agree with you, Ballina. Why would I pay the money to go and see this reunion if they're not actually reuniting in person?
I have to say that
I agree.
You agree? So we've got a bit of a mixed panel here, but I think the bottom line is it's kind of the future. I don't know, Hannah and Ballina, whether we can actually stop the Hannah, less like Benifer. I wonder if we can actually stop the progress. For you, Lucy, and your kids, how do you think they'd look upon that? Would they detach from it? You said it's connecting things. So is it?
Well, I see it as a connection in terms of the band getting together in their way, and it's a way of the future. I see it as we can't stop that. I
really hope it's not the way of the future, that we can't see the legends of our lives live. I mean, that's what you're paying the money for versus listening to the record or,
But you're still getting a show. You're still getting an amazing show that they've put a lot of work and, you know, effort into creating something new.
That's true.
Yeah,
That's true.
yeah, I do get that. It's a new type of show, but why would I go there physically? You know, whereas I should be able to just get on my screen and stream and get on and look at it. And I get that. That would be great.
I've never actually seen something like this before.
Okay, so obviously these are going to be the kind of conversations that come into 2022. And by the way, they're going to be doing it globally, which is really, really interesting. I've got a new one for all of us, the next topic that I would like to bring on. And I'd like to bring that on with Ms. Hannah Littman in Miami, who is British. And there's a lot of stuff going on, of course, all around the world, but London often leads the way in fashion, in social consciousness, in so many things. There was a Guardian article, which I found really interesting, on consumption capping. Now, Ab Fab's Joanna Lumley, and who hasn't watched Ab Fab, and if you're too young, go back and watch it, proposes a return to wartime rationing, Hannah. Shoppers will be issued with government coupons for food, for travel, and it's a response to urgent planet health call to action. Your thoughts, please.
I think this is such an important topic, and I'm so glad that so many thought leaders are weighing in on this. I don't know whether a rationing program is the way forward, but we're all aware that consumption of meat, down to the way we travel, down to everything that we're doing, is affecting the planet. So I don't know what the real solution is. I'm inclined to think that people would boycott such a movement in 2021, 22, but you know, we have got to find solutions to this. Have we lost Henry again?
I think so.
I'm sorry. You know what? This is a dream come true, losing me. I mean, that's fantastic. My sisters would actually want to know the trick on how to do that. But Elna, my question to you is, you're a property advocate, you're about social enterprise. How viable would it be for Joanna Lumley's projected idea for 2022 that we start doing food rationing, travel rationing? It's called consumption capping, all with regard to this insulate, Britain and the world against what's happening with the warming and the sustainability issues of the planet. What's your take on it?
Look, my issue is that whilst I think it's a knee-jerk reaction, because we're not really looking at the core systems that are in place that is producing these so-called rationing requirements, and that is big companies. Big companies are using the most energy. Big companies are not being sustainable, and we have COP26 coming up, which our Pacific Islanders are really forward thinking about how we can save the world, and also in doing so the economy. We've got farmers who have had to throw out produce because nobody can transport that produce, and I think just rationing is just not the true answer to a long-term way of living. And the elite needs to do it too. It's not just feed the poor and see what the elite can do.
Well, absolutely. I mean, both you, Hannah, and all three ladies have children, obviously. Lucy, do you think that's too radical to start already, implementing consumption capping? What do you think?
Look, I think we all need to do our part in addressing climate change and the issues that we're facing, and where are we heading? Consumption capping is a very difficult one to do. I don't know how that would be implemented in 20. How would we implement that with thinking about how we would go about our rights and things like that? But where's the balance? How do we find the balance?
I think that it's.
I have to admit, sorry, Henry. I have to admit, the ration capping with toilet paper in Australia worked. So let me just.
That was universal.
We didn't have a cap.
To ration that you don't take a couple of big boxes of toilet paper. So maybe
actually, that's interesting. that's actually a really interesting point, because perhaps the whole question should be, when it really comes down to it, we can do rationing if we have to. And the question is, should we be doing it now? What do you think, Hannah?
I mean, Ballina raised a really great point, because we waste so much in this modern times. I mean, you know, especially like the toilet paper, we just hoard it. We go into panic mode. And it is I think, a bit of a class issue, but I don't know what the solution is. I really don't. I think if you start imposing more restrictions on people, then you're going to see a backlash, and I don't know how negative that backlash would be. So, you know, it's not 1950 anymore. We're in 2022, and
it's not. I
people
think
are very vocal, and we have social media, and I don't know.
I think the thing is that perhaps I'm going to, you know, lean a little bit to my right, your left, everybody viewing, and that is with regard to Ballina. I think that's a really good point. You know, when we're going to actually have to, the question's now coming up time and time again, will it be too late? I do believe, however, that the way technology works, and maybe we're too smart for ourselves, and we actually will in the last minute ration, because we know it's going to be absolutely essential. I'm going to be back with all my fantastic guests live from Miami, right around the world. Just to remind you, this is Henry and Friends Live. Thank you so much for viewing in. We've got Halloween Evening in New York City from Robert Pulaski, who's our travel correspondent. Jane Marshall, who's been a fantastic inspiration for the show, is saying hello in Melbourne. We've got Kat saying hello in Melbourne. We've got Lucy saying hello in Melbourne as well. It's Melbourne centric at the moment. Melbourne's coming out of its shell after so much repression, and just all of us wanting to have freedom. Now, talking about freedom, how much anxiety do we all experience right here and right now? Look, even Astro Boy's putting his hands up. That's 3 of us. It's going to be a really, really interesting show next weekend, because we've got the formidable, the fabulous Dr. David, a psychiatrist. You'll be really pulling up your sofa, because he next weekend is going to be talking about how to beat anxiety. Let's have a little Yes, we're back, Lucy. It's like, it's amazing. This is a really interesting conversation. I know that you were very, very excited to sort of get going on this. And this was actually a really interesting one that I'm going to pull up, because you're in fashion, and I'm just getting the interesting one here. And that basically is, if I can have it, see it. Yes. Let me see it here. This was what the banner was, Lucy, and that was from Forbes and Vanity Fair. That in actual fact, moving forward, you know, gender is just absolutely gone by the by. So in other words, this spring 2022 runway in New York City had people, whatever their identity is, wearing women's clothing, when men wearing women's clothing. Do you see an end to binary definitions, and how much do you think that's going to impact on you, being a person who's in fashion design? What are your thoughts?
I definitely see it as the way forward. We've seen unisex fashion through the decades. Like 1980s, we saw heaps of it, but it was a different time. It was like about consumerism. So and the introduction of mass production and all of that, and fast fashion. Now the trend is pushed in a different way. We are socially conscious of, you know, sustainability and stuff like that. So I think there's that influence, as well as, you know, gender fluidity. So there's a few factors pushing the trend. But yeah, I see it as this will be the way forward. In terms of what I do, I specialize in gowns. So
you're open to any gender, right? open to every gender. I know, Ballina, that you've had, and I've been involved with you with regard to the transgender community, the transsexual community. So I know you're a real advocate for that, an ambassador for that. Did binary definitions exist in your mind to start with?
Culturally, it's always been there. I mean, we had men in sarongs, but let me tell you, they are sexy. So, you know,
I
I'm
wouldn't
sure
know.
being in the UK and Scotland, the kilt. Come on. Now it's just really about your expression and your style and your authenticity about it. And it must be hard as a designer because you have to cater for these wide array of expressions, so to speak. And I think it's wonderful. I've got men. I mean, it's a normal night out, a guy in a dress, you know. So,
Well,
and sometimes they look too fabulous, and I'm like, hello, where did you get that? Because I want it. So I
Hannah,
think it's
you have,
wonderful.
thanks, Ballina. You have, Hannah, how many children and what are their sexes?
2, a boy and a girl.
Right. What would happen if you're, hypothetically, you're very libertarian, I would imagine. What would happen if, in fact, that those fashion trends would come home into your actual living room and there would be a reverse, a flip of what we would consider to be normal, you know, wear? What would you think? What would you
I
think?
don't know how it is in Melbourne and Sydney, but there's so much angst I have about raising children in you know, the 21st century with social media and all those other things. But I would say a beautiful thing is how accepting my kids are. They have transgender friends, you know, girls coming to school who think that they might want to identify as male and vice versa. And my kids don't have a problem with it. Whereas when I was at school, I was bullied for having an American mother and being Jewish. So, you know, how beautiful is it that with all the problems of raising children in this day and age, that I do feel some kind of peace that they can be themselves and they can be authentic. I think that's beautiful.
I think it's interesting because I think it's actually what we're all saying here. There's a normalization. And, you know, regardless of how it hits our home, I think we're all saying that regardless of what's coming our way, we've all become so much broader and we've all become, you know, so much more realistic to what's coming ahead. These are some really great topics that I think we're all enjoying. And Ballina, I'm going to ask you the next question. We've got literally, can you believe it, 8 minutes to go. I am going to do a little bit of something for all of those people that are watching us. We're going to be actually extending this show for about 10 minutes, and I'll tell you why. We have some goss for all of you. We have Hannah Littman in Miami, who's gone on her very first date after 7 years. We have Lucy Laurita, who after years has just done this new bob, which is revolutionary. And, excuse me, Ms. Ballina Gee in Sydney that spoke to us just as we were coming on to air about the heels of the height of her high heels. So we're going to be spending another 5 minutes just having a little goss. If you want to join us, you're very, very welcome. But now back to Ballina. I want to just do the next topic, which is really interesting. Now, this is about space. And this is about commercial travel. So what this is, Ballina, is as follows. Love it or not, we are looking actually into a new space age, rockets, private commercial travel. So we know that. But the interesting thing is, whereas before, and last year alone, it was worth $366 billion in 2019, there's a space for Earth economy, right? So now what they're saying is there's going to be a space to space economy, which means, for example, we'll start mining on the moon. Do we not have enough to do here on planet Earth?
I know. I read something about Dolly Parton, actually, who said that I'd still rather give books to schools than go into space. And obviously she could afford it. So I just think, well, obviously there's a need. Companies want to go to space. There is a need for the, you know, those can afford it to go up to space. At least it will take care of all the, I don't know, flat Earth people, or, you know, that the Earth doesn't exist in its form or sphere. Yeah, I mean, it's an opportunity, and if you can afford it, go for it. But if you can afford that much, how about you impact the world in a different way as well? So just consider that.
Well, it's interesting because you, Lucy, Laurita, are not just a fashion designer. I mean, not just you're a fashion designer, plus you're really a crusader when it comes into cultural mental wellness. That's one of your huge ambassadorships. So should we actually be doing space-to-space mining in the moon, at the moon, or should we actually bring it a bit closer to home and just look around the block and see what's going on? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I'm always big on,
Sorry, Lucy. Start again.
Yes, we have to look after our own here. I'm all for innovation and technology, obviously, and apparently Australia is leading the way in this innovation of mining on the moon. The Pilbara is already managed by robots, so and they're thinking of using that technology. That's a possibility for the moon. So, but no, I don't think we should be, investing in that sort of travel around space. Apparently it's $250,000 to take that tour. Or should we be touching the moon for mining purposes? No.
Hannah, what are your thoughts? All of you have children. There's the future. Somebody actually had to discover America, didn't they? And they had to discover Australia and all the other parts of the world. But of course, it all started in London. But can I ask you your thoughts about that? Isn't it something that we should be advancing? Isn't it something?
Again, I lean in with Ballina. When Jeff Bezos and Richard Branson have the kind of money that they could spend to go up into space, but they also have the kind of money that could make such an impact on child poverty and resources available to kids. Jeff Bezos in particular, his business started with selling books. To that point about Dolly Parton, what a better impact he could have by funding education initiatives and reading initiatives in our schools before he, I don't want to say anything inappropriate, but who's is bigger, and I'm going to be the first one into space. So
yeah,
I really agree with that. I think that we're probably the first time we're in unison here, and I think the thing is that if we just look in our own back garden, what we're seeing is things could be invested just down the block.
Well, there was a report this morning about Elon Musk, and he now is the richest man on earth. And if you earned $1,500 a week for the next 150,000 years, you still wouldn't make as much money as him.
God, that's so sobering, isn't it?
So
that's unbelievable.
That's pretty sobering.
And I find it interesting with Elon Musk, even calling one of his companies Tesla, because Tesla, did so much wonderful things for society, like free energy, and did technology back then that was revolutionary and was supposed to help society. So,
it's interesting.
I agree with Donna Harris's comment just now on Facebook.
So would you like to
eradicate poverty, sort out climate change, and do so much more on our planet before we start going off to other ones?
I think that we all have to agree on that. That there's just that's just one. That's got to be a unanimous for our panel discussion. Can you believe it, ladies? We have got 2 minutes before we go into our special girls session, closed session where people can still listen in and talk about Hannah's first date after 7 years, Ballina and her high heels escapade, and what made Lucy cut her hair so significantly. The last thing that I'd like to really bring up, which I think is just, I don't know, I read it, I'm like, really? And I'm just going to get the topic out right here, right now. And that is talking about Meta. Meta is the new umbrella company that used to be Facebook company, is now called Meta. Is it better? And more importantly, what is this about? Are you cynical? Do you embrace it? What are your ladies' thoughts? Over to you first, Hannah.
I mean, having worked in PR, this was just a PR scam. Facebook has been facing so much toxic news lately. And this was just to change the conversation, frankly.
I'm just out of breath. I'm actually out of breath. That was a cliffhanger because I just think it's so cynical. Who is that woman that we just, Ballina, we did a little bit of research, ladies. They spilt the beans, didn't they? They did this expose on Facebook and just said how much they actually distort, the algorithms, Facebook, to their own embetterment. It's supposed to be a social interactive, but in actual fact, there's a lot of issues with that. What was the name? We jotted that name down.
I think her name was Frances something.
Frances Haugen.
Frances Haugen, thank you.
So, Lucy, Laurita, before we talk about your hairstyle, which is going to come back in a minute, and other important things like that, what's your vibe? What's the deal? What's going on with regard to Meta?
It's publicity. It's just rebranding to sort of get our minds away from the negativity. Look, we know what Facebook is about. We know what all social media is about, and we are putting our data out there for a reason. Obviously, we're agreeing to use platforms because it benefits us in some way, but what they're using our data for, well, we have no control over that, and we have no control over the positives and negatives that are coming from that.
Thank you, Lucy. Ballina, we've had many a deep conversation. You are my neighbour down the road after all. What's your little take on Meta?
Well, I've been in innovation for many years. I mean, I remember doing marks and being in hackathons, and technology can be used for good and evil, to be honest. Facebook, Mark Zuckerberg has been looking into this for quite some time, over a number of years. In fact, he stole this idea from Simon Scripps, so Simon's not too happy. But basically, it's a platform, it's a world. We are Meta. Our data is Meta, and how we interact with the world is our Meta. So you think of ourselves as beings and atoms. Well, in the digital world, yes, the matrix, it's about, bytes and binary and data pieces. So it's Meta. Now, you can use this world as a way to open up. So people are suffering from loneliness. When I was in the hackathon for abusive situations, it allowed gaming and this whole second world, allowed people to really open up and share and get through some of those experiences. And this is a world where they could do that with VR and AR, and I know some of the actual programmers. So it can be a great way to do this. The problem is we have to be careful in our own constitution, in our mind constitution, and in our emotions, so that when we are in this world, we do realize that that is not reality, right?
It's a tool.
These
ladies, you see how we all get heated up when you talk about Facebook and Meta. And I'm going to have a real confession with you, because on one side, it's like a cynical, marketing ploy. Ballina can see the other side of the coin, which is, it opens up our world. I'm just going to leave you this one comment, and I'm going to invite you in 30 seconds to come back and let me understand what your one thing is that you'd like to take away into 2022. But honestly, and I know this might sound cynical, but to me, it was just the takeover of the M, right? So first we have the takeover of the MC, and we know what company that is, McDonald's. And now we've got the takeover of another M, which is Meta. I'm really cynical about it. I think it's actually trying to cast the eye of the community of all of us. We have to use it. There's no other way. It's one of the largest corporations that supersedes governments. But to me, it's just a little bit of a have a look over here. Have a look. Don't look there. Have a look over here. Because it's all part of that, I think. I'm going to ask you to. I'm going to invite you back in literally 30 seconds while I remind everybody for what we're actually going to be talking about next weekend. What's the one thing that you hope positively that 2022 does for you? So I know these are hard questions. I never said they were going to be easy. Our panel is absolutely stupendous. I have to say, I knew we were all going to enjoy it. It's absolutely magnificent. I just want to remind you, Dr. David is back next weekend. That is when you sit on the sofa. He is the preeminent psychiatrist in New York City, and we're going to be talking about anxiety busters. What's the best way that you can actually defeat your anxiety? And we're going to be back in literally 23 seconds, because we are going to be asking the ladies of the panel in Miami, Melbourne, and Sydney how they actually see 2022 coming their way. Please stand by. Well, we're going to be extending the show straight after this. It's now exactly 5 minutes past. Not bad for covering about 8 topics with our incredible panel. I'm going to bring on Lucy first. What would you like to take into 2022, Lucy?
Hopefully life at my own pace, but I know that's not going to happen because we're just going to get faster. I think we're going to see technology moving in at a pace that it's going to blow our minds, really. Like we've gone through.
So you see hoping to slow down, but you also see that you're not going to be able to do that. Ballina, what's your final thoughts on this?
I think 2022 is going to be the two spectrum worlds where you've got people realizing, I love this planet, look after the planet, look after my health, be truthful and authentic, and do what I love, take that time, to a whole new world, so likely be said, very technology, getting into like lots of stuff and really upskilling ourselves, because AI, machine learning, is definitely here.
Hannah, what do you think? There's two worlds. There's a world that's going to be fast. What's your world for 2022?
Yeah, like Lucy and Ballina said, I think with all the negatives of the pandemic, the one positive has been getting back some of that work-life balance by working from home, not having, the 2 or 3 hours of commuting every day, just being more present for my children. I'm very cognizant of the fact that I have a son who's about to turn 16. I've only got 2 years left with him at home, and I just want to soak it all up like a sponge and just treasure all of that.
I'll tell you one thing. I have to cut you off, but I have to tell you one thing. When you will never be an empty nester, because with your dog back there, you're always going to have something. I want to thank you all. Hannah, stay where you are. I'm going to just invite you off, and we're going to be talking about what it was like for your first date after 7 years. Lucy, stay tuned, because we're going to come back straight away after this and talk about what it took to do your haircut, because I know hair is like an essential part of our style. And you, Ballina, what was it like to be in high heels after probably the last 2 years? This has been an incredible show. Stay behind if you want to hear a little bit of girly goss. And this is Henry and Friends Live, your host right around the globe. Stay back, because we're going to have a bit of a girly. I mean, how could you not extend the show when the three panelists that we have got this whole other side that we need to discuss? So I'm going to invite back Hannah and Lucy and Ballina. I think what we should do is maybe start with you, Ballina. Tell us about your high heels, and like you made a comment about that.
Well, we've been in lockdown and social distancing, and I don't know how to wear high heels anymore. To be honest, I put them on my feet. I couldn't even walk around my room, and because my feet have been in sneakers and thongs for the last couple of years, so stilettos are a no. So yeah, I don't know about everybody else, but they found that different.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because it's interesting, the small things that are really huge things. That can really impact on our lives and how much we appreciate things, or possibly change up everything. Talking about changing up everything, Lucy, Laurita, fashion designer extraordinaire. You look like a different person. For those people that have known Lucy before in her gorgeous ensemble of hair and this bob, that was just like that. What went down?
It wasn't just like that. I've been in lockdown for so long. I had regrowth that was so long. It was like just one big mess. So thankfully, I don't even know how I got into the hairdresser so quickly. I think because I was the first. I had booked my appointment like before, and then we hit lockdown. So I was on that list the first one. So yeah, so I feel much better now.
Oh my God. Lucy Howe says, love Lucy Laurita. I know you guys work in tandem, and you've got that you've got your reality TV, a charity reality TV show coming up, which of course we're going to get the first exclusive interview.
Yes, and Lucy is the one who got me on there.
That's fantastic. Lucy's an amazing ambassador also for mental wellness. You've got a whole team down there in Melbourne, and goodness knows you're going to have a hell of a lot of work down there after what's been going on.
Stand by, everyone, for our big adventure.
Now, you know, we had a huge show with Dr. David, I think about 2 months ago now. So definitely pop onto Henry and Friends live YouTube channel about dating. And so when Hannah Littman casually said to us, she's going on the first date for the last 7 years, since the last 7 years. Hannah, how was last night? And it's fresh off the bat. How was last night? Honestly, true confessions, please.
Lovely. It was a chap who I've spoken to actually since I think I was first divorced 10 years ago, but we never actually met. But we've done a lot of professional stuff together. So it was probably a good entryway back into dating, because I felt like I was going out with an old friend. But like to Ballina's point, it was hard to put on the high heels,
Yes.
drop into the skinny pants, and that don't have a drawstring.
I think Melita commented she had problems with high heels as well.
Yeah, I was wobbling and I wasn't drunk.
But
I mean, how we go on a date? Like when you go on a date, you get dressed up, you wear the heels, you look fabulous. Like
yeah, but also with all the social anxiety of so it was like I'm newly single after 6 years not being single. Who's a dog? And then all the additional social anxiety from COVID. You know, I was watching Amanda de Cadenet. I don't know whether you know her on Instagram. She was a popular TV presenter in the 90s, and she was at the concert, and she's like, I'm such an outgoing person, and I'm going to my first concert in 2 years, and I'm freaking out, and that's how I felt last night.
But Hannah, as the host and the intrepid journalist here on this report, I need to ask you, yes, we know about the heels, and we understand about, you know, that trepidation, but we haven't got into the nitty-gritty, my darling. Where did you go and how was it?
We went to a new restaurant that I've been wanting to try. It's a Tel Avivian restaurant. It was lovely. And it was easy. It was an easy date. It wasn't
nice.
easy.
So that worked out well. Well, I have to tell you, we had to extend the show. May I, on behalf of Henry and Friends Live, all our team, all the guests that have come on and continue to come on. It's such a beautiful, real platform. You're a magnificent guest. It's been a lot of preparation for this show. Stay on, so we'll have just a final chat on.
It's so much fun. I want to be back.
Have you enjoyed it? Have you ladies enjoyed it?
I loved it.
Of course.
Yes, I do. I want to know what's our next one.
Well, I have to tell you. I tell you what I want to do, and I mean, I'm going to have to experiment it. But what I wanted to do was just choose a date and just say to everybody that's been a guest this year, would you like to come and join us on our end of year show? So I think I need to test how that's going to work. But I know one thing for sure, we're definitely going to have more panels. And I know that I can accommodate up to 10 guests. So there's going to be an expansion because this was just so informative and fun. Stay on because I'm just going to have a few more words on how to make sure that you interact. Hannah Littman, have a great evening. Thank you so much. Stay on. Lucy Laurita in Melbourne, stay on. You've been absolutely fantastic. Thank you. And Ballina Gee, Sydney Cider, hometown. You've been magnificent. This is Henry and Friends Live around the globe. Thank you so much for joining us. What a humbling show. Wonderful panel. It's been so much fun, and we look forward for you to join us again. And as a famous DJ that I always quote at the end of the show, may your feet touch the ground and may you keep reaching for the stars. Have a great last 8 weeks of 2021, and we've got quite a few predictions coming up for 2022. Bye for now.